Hello everyone, thanks for joining us and welcome to today's Innovation Briefing with Dr. Lisa Messina. I'm Rob McGreer, Business Engagement Officer at Queen's University Belfast and lead on the InterTradeIreland All-Ireland Innovation Programme for the university. Queen's is one of 4 universities working with InterTradeIreland to deliver the innovation programme across the island of Ireland, along with NUI Galway, DCUs Ryan Academy and University College Cork. Together, for more than 12 years, we have been hosting a series of live events including masterclasses, keynote lectures and conferences at each of our campuses to support small to medium-sized enterprises. The aim of the events and of the innovation programme as a whole is to share international best practice and advice in areas of innovation to encourage and support the growth of SMEs. Today, I am delighted to introduce the first in a new online series of AIIP events for SMEs. These will include expert-led talks, masterclasses and briefings to support SMEs during the current COVID-19 crisis and beyond. Throughout the online series, you will hear from national and international business experts who will share their insights on how to best navigate the challenges of the current turbulence. You will also have the opportunity to ask the experts questions, which will be responded to after each online event concludes. And you can interact during the events by comment on the video below, tagging our @QUB engagement or @inter_trade Twitter handles using the hashtag AIIP. Please also feel free to email any questions or feedback you may have for the event speaker to businessengagement@qub.ac.uk or directly to Lisa using the address she'll provide at the end of her presentation by midday tomorrow. And we hope to have as many responses for you as possible online by this time next week. Please be aware, however, that this briefing and post-event Q&A will be displayed online, and by submitting questions, you are giving permission for them to be placed and answered on public platforms such as Queen's University Belfast and InterTradeIreland websites and social media channels. So I would now like to introduce you to today's speaker, Dr. Lisa Messina, and to thank her for delivering the first event of this new online series. Lisa is a lecturer at Queen's University Management School and has expertise in the areas of entrepreneurship, international business and innovation. Her current research is on university spin-out companies and their growth, and today she will share insights, tools and strategies that SMEs can employ during conditions of real-time problem solving.
Hello everyone, my name is Lisa Messina and I'm a lecturer in management at Queen's University Belfast. And today, as part of the InterTrade Ireland All-Ireland Innovation Programme, I'm going to talk you through some of the strategic tools, and more specifically the strategic behaviours that you can employ as an SME owner, as an SME manager, or as an SME employee to increase the chances of your firm's survival and hopefully success as we navigate this crisis. Even if you did have the best preparation available and you had excellent contingency plans in place, it is very unlikely that these plans and these preparations would have helped you in a crisis like this. And really that comes down to one aspect, one differentiation that is really important in this context. You need to distinguish between routine crises where contingency planning and crisis management is really effective, and true emergency crises or true emergency events, as is the COVID-19 crisis. These crises are unprecedented. So the contingency planning that maybe you had in place to survive difficult circumstances are not going to really work that well in this case. Routine crises are the crises that you can predict. You can predict that these at some point in the near to medium to long term might emerge, and therefore you develop processes for your company to manage them, to deal with them as they arise, so that you know exactly what to do and your employees know exactly what to do if these things happen. And these could be from, a member of staff falling ill. How are you going to cover for that person? A number of staff members going maternity leave or paternity leave, fluctuations in demand and supply, your buyers being late paying their fees, your suppliers being late in delivering the so essential stock that you need. So these are aspects that you can plan for, and in these cases, contingency planning can be extremely effective. Furthermore, in routine crises, you have the luxury of time and the headspace and rationality to really prioritize aspects of your business. You know where your priorities lie, and you know which take precedence over others. In true crises, you really don't have that luxury. These are unprecedented circumstances. Nobody really knows what the problems are. And even researchers that are looking at this crisis are trying to identify its aspects. We're still trying to identify what the questions to be asked are, let alone the answers to those questions. And the true challenge for businesses, for SMEs, is that you're probably facing with conflicting priorities, absolute priorities that you never thought you would have to trade off. For example, you might have to find a trade-off between the welfare and safety of your employees and the delivering value to your customers in a timely manner. Paying your employees or paying your suppliers, paying your rent or your mortgage. And all of these factors are critical to the health and productivity of your organization. But it's unlikely that you'll be able to satisfy them all in a crisis like this one. So one thing that you can do is to really develop an effective management process that gives you a better structure, a bit of clarity, and a better direction, not only for yourself, but to communicate to your employees, so that you know what you're operating in and you know what you're working towards. And that process requires you to innovate, to change the things that you're doing at the moment and that you were doing before, because they're not going to work in a new changed environment that continuously change. You need to exploit the wonderful skill that many entrepreneurs have, that is real-time problem solving. But the challenge is to couple that with medium to long-term planning. What are you going to do if there's a second wave of the virus in September or January? You need to really think both in the present and in the future, and that can be really challenging. And the only way really that you can do that is that if you have a structure to follow. Okay, where can I innovate? What are the opportunities? What are my risks? How can I build flexibility in this? So what can you do? So far, I've really spoken about the things that have made it difficult for you to manage this crisis, but there are certain things that you can do to increase your chances of survival and hopefully success. Number one is to get out of your emergency mode. Everybody was shocked by this crisis. Nobody saw it coming, but it's not sustainable for you or your employees or your business generally to sustain this emergency mode, trying to resume your business as usual and your day-to-day activities as they were prior to the crisis. You really need to treat this as your new normal. This crisis is not going to go away in a matter of days or weeks. It's here to stay for maybe a year, maybe 18 months, according to some sources. So you really need to view it as your new reality, your new normality. And in order to do that, you can't fight against it. You can't try to go back to your old self as a business. You need to adapt your behavior. You need to adapt your routines, your processes, so that you can work within this environment, increase your productivity and your effectiveness. And that means not only you as a manager or as an owner, your employees need to change with it. And I want to emphasize this. This does not mean try to ignore it and go back to trying to work as normal. You know, your child care issues are still going to be here. Caring for elderly relatives, parents, working from home for people that maybe didn't have the opportunity to work from home and are not used to that environment, and the inability to separate your work from your personal life. These aspects, which can be extremely challenging for many, many people, are here to stay. So you cannot just ignore those. You need to identify routines and processes that work for you as a business and that coexist with these issues. And one way you can do that, and I appreciate that this is not going to work for all businesses depending on the type of service or product that you're delivering and the type of industry that you're working in, is to give more ownership of the responsibilities to your workforce. Move away from the time-based work allocation model and try to move towards an outcome or an objective-driven allocation model. Give more flexibility to your employees. Allow them to decide based on their problems at home and their flexibility when they can work and when they can be most productive and effective. And that not only will increase the productivity of your employee and the effectiveness, because they're not trying to juggle their kids at home and schooling their kids, or maybe their relatives that are ill and they need to take care of them. They will find a way to take ownership of the responsibilities that you've given them, manage the expectations as to when they can deliver and to what kind of standard, and give them ownership. Not only will they be more effective, as I was saying, and more productive, you will empower them. They will feel a lot more trusted that you're giving them ownership over their job. You're trusting them with taking care of those responsibilities, and you're not checking when they're working and if they're working. And key to that is really to listen to them and their needs and what they can achieve and what they cannot achieve. But the bottom line here is that by getting out of your emergency mode, you really need to change your structure, your routines, your processes. Trying to resume your old normality is obsolete. And if you don't do this and you continue to work at suboptimal level as a business for the medium to long term, some other business, a competitor of yours that maybe is delivering a similar service or product, will do it better, and you will lose your competitive advantage. So that is the number one thing that you need to start trying to do if you haven't done it already. So the second aspect is to adopt an entrepreneurial orientation. Entrepreneurial orientation is a strategic tool. It's an entrepreneurship theory that reflects the essence, the spirit of behaving in an entrepreneurial way. It reflects the behaviors, decision-making processes, and practices that we would associate with entrepreneurship. And employing the entrepreneurial orientation construct really enables you to recombine the available knowledge, acquire new knowledge, develop new products and processes that work for you in this newly found environment as it continues to change. And it critically gives you clarity and structure. What am I talking about? So entrepreneurial orientation is a set of behaviors that is made up essentially of three dimensions, or three sets of separate behaviors that coexist and should be interrelated: proactiveness, innovativeness, and risk-taking. Proactiveness is the part of the construct of the behavior that requires you to be forward-looking and opportunity-seeking. So really, it requires you to look at your business, what you're doing, looking at the market, looking at your rivals, your competitors, and identifying ways to deliver value to your customers in a way that maybe is better and better suited to the newfound environment, and is better than what your rivals are doing. However awful this crisis is and has been and will continue to be, it's disrupting the market. And as markets get disrupted, opportunities emerge. And you need to develop an alertness as an entrepreneur, as an SME owner or manager, or even an employee, to really look out for these opportunities and find ways to pursue them. Only by doing that will you keep ahead of your competition and will continue to deliver value to your customers better than they will. You should combine that forward-looking, opportunity-seeking behavior with innovativeness. And innovation really in this context requires you to be open to innovation. And innovation is such a broad term that really what this looks like for you really depends on your business, your level of technological literacy, if you're delivering a product or a service. And really all of these behaviors, the characteristics of them will depend on your specific characteristics as a business, the contingencies that you're dealing with, and your industry. But innovativeness requires you to change what you're doing, essentially. Find better ways of delivering value to your customers in a way that enables you to pursue the opportunities that you identified through proactiveness. So this might mean changing your processes and finding ways to engage with your employees and increasing their empowerment and engagement, even from home. It might involve you finding new ways of delivering value to your customers if the old ways are no longer feasible. It might involve you developing new products or services altogether based on the opportunities that you identified. Essentially, innovativeness means change. You need to be open to changing your routines and processes as the environment is changing and continues to change. Risk-taking is the third dimension of entrepreneurial orientation, and it's probably the most challenging for many businesses because it requires you to evaluate what your weaknesses are as a business, where the most vulnerable aspects of your business are. And while you do that, you also have to evaluate the risks involved in the new opportunities that you've identified. So is it more risky, for example, for you to stay as you are and try to resume your business as usual routines and processes, or is it more risky for you to diverge and pursue new opportunities? There's risk involved and uncertainty involved in both those scenarios. So really what you need to engage in is in an assessment of what the risks are and where the opportunities are, and really pursue where the opportunities or the benefits outweigh the costs. And while these are extremely useful, I would add that you need to be flexible as well. You need to embed enough flexibility in your strategic making as you develop your proactiveness, innovativeness, and risk-taking so that you can respond to the rapidly changing environment. Proactiveness, innovativeness, and risk-taking are extremely useful tools for you to gain a better idea of where you want to go. But obviously, as the environment changes, that direction might have to change with it. So be flexible, and that's an advantage that many SMEs have compared to larger businesses, because you're smaller. You're not as structured. Your structure isn't as cumbersome compared to large businesses. So you can change a lot more rapidly, but you need to embed that in your strategic thinking. And finally, lead and empower through the crisis. Behave like a leader. The bottom line here is that your employees and your consumers will remember how you behave during this crisis. So this crisis is really an opportunity and a risk if you don't manage those relationships accordingly. It's an opportunity for you to strengthen the loyalty that your employees and consumers feel towards you, but it's also a risk if you don't manage it effectively to lose that loyalty. And as the crisis ends and we transition into our new normal and hopefully a much more positive normal, that loyalty will be tarnished. So behave like a leader, communicate with your employees and your consumers clearly, honestly, and offer hope. Clarify what the challenges are as a business, what you're facing, what you're doing about it, and really take this opportunity to empower and trust your employees. They might have responsibilities that you as an owner or manager are not aware of or not involved in. So they might be alert to certain aspects of the business that you are blind to. So they might see an opportunity or they might see a challenge that you're not aware of. So involve them in your decision-making process. Not only will that inform the decision-making process, it will also empower them and make them feel valued. Reassure your workforce if they are safe. Be honest if they're not. Just be clear and be transparent with them. Clarify the outcomes of your decisions or what they might be in the medium to long term, and just make your employees feel trusted. They will remember how you behave, so really take this opportunity to strengthen that relationship. So what are the takeaway points? Well, recognize that even if you maybe didn't have or weren't particularly successful in managing this crisis so far, know that this was an unprecedented crisis, unlike any other that you might have faced in your life cycle as a business. So nothing could have prepared you for this. But now you need to get out of your emergency mindset. This is your new normal. You need to change your routines and processes, as do your employees, to really adapt and find a new business as usual within these chaotic circumstances. And in order to create a bit more clarity and direction in these chaotic circumstances, adopt an entrepreneurial orientation. Be proactive and forward-looking in identifying new opportunities and pursuing those opportunities. Innovate change the things that you're doing that maybe aren't working anymore. That could be processes, products or services, ways of delivering value to your customers. Identify and evaluate and take risks that are associated with those opportunities, and behave like a leader and empower your employees. Strengthen those relationships. That is so, so important. Well, thank you very much for listening in. Hopefully you found it useful. If you do have any questions, please tweet them at QUB Engagement, or you can email me directly at l.messina@qub.ac.uk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for that fantastic presentation. That was really interesting, and I'm sure it will be used to lots of people watching and listening. I'd like to thank you all once again for tuning in. And if you have any questions or feedback for Lisa, please email them directly to Lisa or to businessengagement@qub.ac.uk by midday tomorrow, Wednesday, the 20th of May, or tag either at QUB Engagement or at Inter_Trade on Twitter using the hashtag AIIP. We hope to be able to answer as many of your questions as possible, and Lisa will be online here again at the same time next Tuesday, May 27th, with her responses. I'd also like to thank InterTrade Ireland for supporting these events, and we look forward to viewing the rest of this new online series, sharing practical tools and innovation advice for SMEs during times of crisis.